Well, the markets are open on this Monday with a brand new week here in December, and we're going to visit with Dewey Strickler about that here in just a moment. First, let's see where these numbers are headed. We'll start over here in the corn market, and a lot of folks watching that March contract. It's up a quarter at 381.5. If you're still interested in the December, it is up 3/4 at 372. The May is now unchanged at 385 3/4 as we get started this morning. January soybeans up a penny at 877 3/4. March up 1. The May is up 1.5. December Chicago wheat up 1 3/4 at 549 1/4. July wheat is up a quarter at 543. December Kansas City wheat up 3.5 at 442 1/4. July is up a half at 461 3/4. Dewey, this corn and particularly the wheat market finding a little bit more strength than it did last night on the overnight trade.
Yeah, I think the reason is we do not have any deliveries so far against the December contracts in both corn and wheat. That is supporting the market here right now. So we know that the commercials are not putting these grains back out here again, and that most of these grains are going to have to come out of farmers' hands here. That's, could be reflected in, of course, the strong basis that we're seeing throughout many parts of the country.
Well, there has been quite a bit of strong basis trying to get the hands out of some of these farmers. A lot of that's just kind of still sitting on the sideline. What do you think about harvest progress at this point?
Well, we're going to be looking at and probably talking about harvest progress through early next spring here. A lot of the areas in the upper Midwest with the winter storm that we've had come through here, I mean, it's just going to be almost very impossible for them to get much more of the harvest out here, especially on the corn. That's the big concern here right now. And it's going to take a little time before we really know how much losses that we could be looking at in the upper Midwest.
What about this export inspections numbers that's going to be coming out here in just a little bit, Dewey? Are you looking for anything big in that to stir this market?
Well, I tell you what we need to see. We need to see exports pick up in corn, because that has been the factor that has been holding this market down here. I've been very disappointed that we haven't seen anything here. And possibly, when we get phase one of the trade deal signed with China, that might give corn market a little bit of lift. The corn market is acting like it's trying to bottom here. We just need to see a pickup in exports.
Is there any word this morning that you're hearing as far as export or news with China so far?
I haven't heard anything here so far this morning. Haven't seen any announcements. Been pretty quiet.
Been pretty quiet indeed. I noticed when Tim Ross, our meteorologist here, had the weather map up just a little bit ago, that drought monitor still showed a big area of drought in western Kansas, eastern Colorado, kind of extending up through part of that wheat country there. But now the wheat's into dormancy. Anybody talking about wheat quality conditions?
Haven't heard really anything so far this season about that. The trade seems to have interest elsewhere right now for the moment.
Especially now that wheat's kind of going into dormancy. All right, we'll take a break and come back and get everybody updated on the opening of the futures for the livestock and continue our conversation with Dewey Strickler right after this. Before we go back to Dewey Strickler at Ag Watch Market Advisors, let's go find out what's going on in the futures this morning as we have opened up the cattle and the hog futures. Now, back on Friday, the cattle futures did settle out a little bit on the weak side. February live cattle right now down 45 at 125.75. The April down 38, and the June is down 50 cents at 117.22. January feeder cattle down $1.25 at 141.03. March down $1.33. The April down $1.35 at 143.63. And after a stronger day on Friday, today on this Monday, hogs were a little bit weaker. February down 97 at 67.20. April hogs down 67 at 73.25, and the May hogs down 78 at 78.97. So Dewey, this protein complex getting off to a little bit of a weaker start here this morning. Let's start in the cattle first. Last week it looked like we pretty much wrapped up most of that cash cattle trade there on just before Thanksgiving on Wednesday. I didn't see much trade on Friday.
Well, there wasn't really very much. It was higher trade, though. The thing I've noticed here about the cattle market, we did put in a bit of reversal here on the February contracts, and we're looking at weights are the highest since December 2016. And you got quite a spread between the cattle and the hogs here, so that is eventually going to bring a cattle market down.
Dewey, I know that you've spent a lot of time working with a lot of cattle producers around the United States and still do to this point. So what's your feel here? Are we getting ourselves set up here due for another correction in the cattle market, do you think? Or do you think that maybe this little bit of a pullback here to start the week and start the month, now that we've got into a new month, this may be the correction or the breather that this market was looking for?
I'm looking for the cattle market to take a pretty sizable hit here, and I was been looking at it for the past couple of weeks here, but last week we're beginning to see the first signs of it here, and I mean we could be looking at like the February cattle coming back down into the 120 range here.
Were you impressed that we took this December clear up above 120?
Yeah, I've been impressed by it, but you know that's a lead contract anyway.
That's a good point. All right. What about the feeder cattle contract? You know, there were some saying that 150 was just not obtainable unless we get some other kind of news here, and we're still quite a ways from it.
Yeah, we are here. I think that the feeder cattle right now, for the moment, looks like is going to reside in a trade range here for a while. January probably meeting some resistance up here at the 145 and support here at the 138 level.
Okay. On over to hogs. You had mentioned something about the lack of a deal with China at this point, and you also used the word, or close to the word, trading within a range over here in the feeder cattle. Could we be setting ourselves up the same way over here in the hog complex, you think, too?
Well, the hog complex Friday made an attempt to post a bottom here. I really do think that we're going to get a little bit below the lows that we set here on Friday of 65.72 in the February contract. Go down, set one more low, and then I think it's the sell-off is over in hogs.
Interesting. Well, we're still waiting to see what could happen with some kind of a news or some kind of a deal, and that's going to affect, excuse me, a lot of these ag commodities. Dewey, always appreciated. Dewey Strickler joining us. He is in Franklin, Kentucky there at Ag Watch Market Advisors, and we always appreciate him joining us here on Mondays.
All right. We appreciate the insight. Thanks, guys.